It's been a while since I wanted to do this video since I have seen many people around me affected by this. And the worst part, most people are clueless on how to react, what are their rights, and how to deal with debt collectors. So in today's video, I'll talk about why you should never pay collections and when it may be a good idea. The main reason why I had to add this in there is that there are plenty of times where you should never pay collections, but there are certain reasons on why you should, and how it can actually help your credit score. Because when you really think about it, the only real reason why you would want to pay a collections account, not only that is the right thing to do, but it is something that you can actually benefit from. Having poor credit is more damaging than you think. If you ever wanted to get financing for anything, let it be a home, a car, even insurance rates will depend on your credit score. And having collection accounts or charge-offs on your credit report has a significant impact on your credit score. I'm talking about anywhere between 30 to 100 points depending on how recent it is. So first, let's go over the terminology. The first one will be charge-offs. So in a nutshell, whenever a creditor, such as a credit card company, is unable to collect the debt that you owe, what they typically do is sell this debt to third-party debt collection agencies. And the reason why these are called charge-offs is that creditors and lenders pay taxes on this debt, because this debt is considered an asset in the government's eyes. So the creditors would have to continue to pay taxes on this debt until it is paid or charged off. Hence the name charge-offs. So now let's move on to collection accounts. So once debt gets sold off to a collections agency, there will be a new account that forms on your credit report, which will be called a collections account. As long as this debt remains open on your account, this is a negative item reporting on your credit report. While the myths are true, these debt collection agencies buy debt for pennies on a dollar. Meanwhile, they are aggressively trying to make you pay for the whole debt. So let me give you an example. Let's just say you have debt with Chase Bank for $1,000. These debt collection agencies probably bought this debt for a few dollars and they're going to try to haggle you to collect the full amount. And if they are successful, they got one hell of a return. So the main goal of debt collection agencies is to try to milk as much money as they possibly can from you. So on the topic of debt collectors, now let's move on to what they can and cannot do. All the information I provided here is from the Federal Trade Commission, so I'm not making none of this stuff up. It's for educational purpose only, and it should not be looked as legal advice. Definitely seek a lawyer if you're needing to, because it may be in your best interest if you're dealing with a large collection account. Debt collection agencies can chase after you for any sort of debt besides business debt, meaning that this can be credit card debt, auto loans, medical bills, mortgages, and any other household debts that you may incur. There are also times where debt collectors cannot contact you. They cannot contact you between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. and they also cannot contact you at work. If you are receiving calls at your workplace, this is actually breaking the law. And you can actually report this to the state attorney general to file a complaint. This was something that I saw fairly common while I was in the military, especially for Marines who were getting cars more than they can handle or something that was going on with their credit. These collection agencies would actually contact the command to try to get in contact with the person. So thinking back on it, this was actually wrongful for the debt collection agency to actually do this, and they could definitely get in a lot of trouble. Debt collectors cannot harass you, threaten you, or use bad language and repeatedly make frequent calls. So this is something that you can actually report to the Attorney General of your state. Now let's move on to what actually happens when a debt collection agency reaches out to you. Most debt collectors, their first method of contact is usually through the phone. It's really up to you if you want to pick up or ignore a phone call from a phone number that you don't recognize. But let's talk about what if you decided to pick up the phone. There is a big misconception out there that states if a debt collection agency calls you and if you pick up and state your name, this confirms that the debt is yours. This is a big myth. Stating your name does not verify that the debt, in fact, is yours. There could be hundreds of other individuals that have the same name as you. Getting your contact information is public records. So just because they call you on your phone and they have your name does not necessarily mean that they have the correct person. But if you do get a phone call from someone that you do not recognize or from an unknown number, you should not be providing any personal identification anyways. This is kind of like common sense, but for some reason when people get these phone calls, which may sound professional, they get so many people caught up and they just spill the beans about everything. So if it is a suspected debt collector, make sure you verify who is calling, get their first and last name, and also the name of their agency. Aside from that, there should be no other communication via phone. Because 99% of the time when you do receive a phone call from a said collection agency, it's gonna be recorded. So there may be some mishaps when you are speaking to them. So at this point, you should tell them to send you a letter about your alleged debt and you'll take a look at it. If they ask you for your address, do not tell them your address. Because if they got the right person, then they should know the person's address as well. Just have them send the information to the address that they have on file and just leave it at that. So once you receive that letter in the mail, now let's move on to the next steps. This is where you want to challenge or dispute the debt. What I mean from this is once you receive this letter, you need to inspect it very thoroughly. You need to make sure that your personal identification is correct, the dates, who was the original creditor, For instance, if it was Chase Bank, and you need to provide you with all the necessary information that show you that the debt is yours. Typically, if you do receive this letter, there should be something in the letter as well, which is in the fine print or somewhere in between the gibberish, that if you believe that the debt is yours, you have the right to dispute it within 30 days. This is where a lot of people mess up, where it says within 30 days. If you do nothing within 30 days, you're basically admitting guilt. Well, of course, there are possibilities that you never received this letter, but if they send it via certified mail and you sign for this letter, then they know for sure that you did receive it. So if there's anything that may be questionable, then it is your right to challenge this debt. So now let's move on to something about the time of when debt can actually even be collected. The first thing you should do after receiving a letter is look at the dates of when the collection account was last reported. You want to make sure that this debt is not outside of the statute of limitations. So in a nutshell, statute of limitations basically mean the length of time when an action is valid. So in this case, this is when a debt is legally collectible or not. Each state will have its own statute of limitations when it comes to collections. So this is something that you would have to Google yourself. I know that for sure in the state of California, for any debt that has a written contract, for example a loan, can only be collected within 4 years of the last reporting date. This does not mean that it just falls off your credit report, it just means that it won't be collectible. A collections account will remain on your credit report for 7 years whenever it first becomes delinquent. So let me give you an example. Let's just say that you defaulted on a loan that went into collections on May 2015. At the making of this video, which is November 2020, since it's been almost 5 years now, it is outside of the statute of limitations for the state of California. A lot of people pay off old debt without actually realizing this, because this debt is not for you to pay anymore. Whatever debt collection agency collects this from you is just free money in their pocket. So if a debt is outside of the statute of limitations, I would highly suggest sending a cease and desist letter to the collection agency. Because once you send this letter, the collection agency should stop contacting you unless they intend to sue you in civil court. This is a good way to stop collectors' harassment and their calls for debt that aren't yours or past the statute of limitations. Now let's just say that the debt is within the statute of limitations. Like you have a couple more years on this collections account and it is deemed collectible. Now this is where you would want to dispute it yourself or go ahead and contact a credit repair agency. So which brings me to today's sponsor, which is myself. So by the time you guys see this video, I probably have already posted saying that I started a credit repair agency. If you are interested in credit repair, anyone who signs up within the first week will get the first month free. I also offer a 90-day guarantee. If nothing gets removed within those first 90 days, you can feel free to cancel and I'll refund you your money. The link is down in the description if you guys want to reach out. I'll send over a calendar so we can schedule a time to see what can I help you with. Again, I'm just doing this for the first 50 applicants. I'm probably not going to take any more clients just because it will take me away from YouTube. Now let's move on if you want to do this yourself. It is very possible to do, it just takes a lot of back and forth and just making sure that everything is done the right way. So now let's go back when you receive this letter in the mail stating the information about this debt. Remember, if you do nothing about this, this is bad. Silence is basically consent. Sorry I had to use that phrase, but if you do nothing about this debt and it gets past 30 days, then they have identified who you are and you're basically claiming guilt. If you do receive a letter stating that, hey, this is your debt and this is who we are and we would like to have you pay X amount of dollars, this is generally not enough information for you to pay. If you do receive something like this, do not pay the debt collectors. This by no means notifies you whether or not the agency is allowed to collect this debt or even if they are legitimate. There are plenty of debt scammers out there. So the first thing that you should do once you receive a letter is that you need to send a collections verification letter. I do have a set of the most commonly used credit repair letters in the description below if you guys want to purchase. If not, that's totally cool. You guys can still type this up yourselves. But anyways, in this letter, the debt collection agency needs to verify the amount of your alleged debt, the full name and mailing address of the original creditor for this alleged debt, meaning that they must provide the name of the creditor, such as Chase Bank, alongside with their contact information. They must also provide documentation showing that they have verified that you are responsible for this debt. And lastly, they must have documentation showing that they are a legitimate business and licensed to collect any debts in your state. Under the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, they have 30 days to respond to this letter. If they do not respond to this letter, then basically they cannot chase you for this debt. Once you're ready to send this letter, just make sure you send it by certified mail with a receipt, because this will be your golden ticket to get a collections account off your credit report. When you get the receipt of when they receive this letter, give it about 45 days because of mailing times. This is where you report this as inaccurate information to the credit bureaus. And this is exactly how collection accounts get off your credit report. For the letter that you sent to the collections agency, just make sure that you have a copy and a copy of the certified receipt. Now just send this information to the credit bureaus and this would almost guarantee you that this account will be removed. Just mainly due to the fact that the debt collection agency cannot verify this debt. Since they cannot verify this information, the credit bureaus is reporting inaccurate information. So under the Fair Credit Reporting Act, Anything that's inaccurate and cannot be verifiable must be removed. So once you send this letter to the credit bureaus, the whole process should take anywhere between 30 to 45 days to hear something back. So in total, once you send a debt verification letter to the debt collection agency, the whole process should take anywhere between 60 to 90 days to get it removed off your credit report. Lastly, I have to bring this up because somebody's gonna mention it. Whenever you owe money to anyone, they have the right to sue you. Depending on the debt, if they win, they can actually garnish your income, tax returns, and any other source of money that you may be receiving. And once this happens, there's really nothing else you can do besides pay off that debt. Now let's just say that the debt is yours and you have gone through all the necessary steps, verifying and confirming that it is yours. Your next best bet is to try to settle. Whenever you are planning to settle debt, these are the complete instructions that you should do. The first thing you must think about is why you want to settle this debt and how you can get this information removed from your credit report. There's no legal law that requires creditors and furnishers to report to credit agencies, and that's a fact. Like whenever you contact any bank and they state that they cannot remove anything from your credit report, that's a bunch of BS because they just don't want to. There is nothing in the Federal Credit Reporting Act that requires any agency to report to credit bureaus. And there are plenty of creditors out there that don't report at all. The only time that they would report is if anything becomes default or anything is negative. So now you have a brief idea of how credit reporting works. Now let's see how can you get this removed from your credit report. If you were gonna settle a collections account, make sure you get it in writing. So for example, saying that you can settle this debt for X amount of dollars if they would remove this from your credit report. If they are not willing to do so, then I would suggest just giving it some more time before they become desperate. So now let's move on to how much you should actually settle for. The biggest factor is how much you're able to pay and how much you're willing to pay. If you are not in a financial position to pay off any type of debt, then make sure that the debt collectors know this. Because it may not be worth their time to chase you for this debt if you're unemployed, currently hospitalized, or you're just not having an income right now. Just because they do not chase you for this debt does not mean that this will get removed from your credit report. Now let me give you an example of how to settle a collections account. If the debt costs $2,000, but you only have $300, then don't settle for $500. If you have money to settle the debt right now, just make sure that you take care of it the same month. People who work for debt collection agencies, they get paid based on commissions. If they don't make any sales that month, they're gonna be way more pressure towards the end of the month. Since debt collection agencies are purchasing debts for pennies on a dollar, I would just start off at a fraction of the price. This could be anywhere from 25% off of the full amount. So if a debt is $1,000, try to aim for $250. But the reality is, if you're able to even pay 50% of the debt, then I would consider that a pretty good deal. Because, hey, it's much better than paying it off in full, plus you're gonna get something negative removed from your credit report, which will fix your credit, and in turn will save you more money on any financing that you need in the future. Again, just make sure that you have everything in writing prior to sending the payment. Make sure that they report this debt as paid in full to the credit bureaus. Whenever you are ready to make your payment, I would highly suggest doing a money order or a cashier's check. You never want the debt collection agency to know your banking information. This is where they can suck your account dry. So now let's move on to something that some may ask, which is federal loans, such as student loans. If you are in default in one of these type of loans, there's really no way around this. Because if you owe money to the federal government, they will try to take this money from you no matter what. This can be from tax refunds, social security, and other sources of income. If you have any of these type of loans that gone into collections, it's gonna be very difficult for you to get any type of financing that's backed by the US government. This can include FHA loans, SBA loans, or any other federal student loans. So for these type of accounts that are in default or have gone into collections, you may want to challenge them just to make sure that it is yours, and if it is, then your best bet is to go to debt rehab. This is just where you just set up a payment schedule where you can address the debt. Alright guys, so that pretty much does it for me. If you guys got some value from this video, make sure you give this a like because that really helps support the channel. If you'd rather have a credit repair agency to repair your credit for you, make sure you hit me up or send me an email. I'll see you guys in my next videos.